Welcome all to another episode of the Real Football Talk. We will be discussing the Chelsea versus Manchester United game and how it went. Adi, what was your take on the first half?
Contrary to maybe some of the panelists thought, I thought the game was really interesting. I enjoyed it because it is the one of the few games against the top teams where there were tackles and it was fast paced. It reminded me of the games a few 5-6 years ago in the Prem, where the big teams actually went for it and put tackles in, and it felt like a derby game. The tempo, the tackles flying in, both teams not giving each other an inch. I enjoyed it. I thought the first half was close. Both teams struggled to get any consistent momentum. And yeah, it was just a full-blooded game. Enjoyed it.
Fahmi, do you think both teams were lacking quality in the attacking third?
Yeah, but they both don't really have players that are quality in the final third. Rashford is quality on his day, but he is pretty inconsistent. And we already know what I think of Bruno Fernandes. 45 minutes of nothing. Great first half from him. He didn't get a goal or an assist, so you notice him more. Or when I say notice him more, I think he touched the ball maybe 4 or 5 times that I remember. And one of them was him trying to get on the end of a Rashford pass, but it didn't happen. Bruno Fernandes covers his poor performances of goals and assists, and he didn't get any today. So you can tell he had a poor performance. Anyway, you asked about the half. I just had a little rant about Bruno Fernandes. But as Adil said, it was an interesting game because, like he said, there was tackles and it seemed like a derby game. But I just feel like the chances that were created weren't anything too special. He had 1 or 2 good chances, but in terms of attacking entertainment, I don't think there was much.
I mean, Hivzo, do you think it was more like a cagey affair where both of the team were kind of going for a draw and they were happy with that result?
I wouldn't say that for Chelsea. I think I probably found Chelsea the more interesting team to watch in that game, and I think I largely agree with both Adil and Famik's point in that it was an interesting game. I think there was a lot going on from both teams. You could see the challenges, you could see the intensity, you could see both teams were up for it. But what Famik said, I think the key missing ingredient was that end quality in the final third. I think Solskjaer, especially in the second half, you could see even towards the end of the game, the balance of kind of defending versus attacking. I think Chelsea was certainly the team that were trying to go for the win more than United were. I think United were. I think they set up in a way where they knew Chelsea would have more of the possession, and obviously, their approach was based on counter-attacking. But from a personal point of view, I think Chelsea were the ones that seemed as if they were going for it more towards the end of the game.
Adi, you seem to be disagreeing here.
No, I felt both teams were going for the win. I felt Man United played with the more risk.
That's because they have Bruno Fernandes.
No, not even with. I mean, like you said, Bruno Fernandes was not much of a factor today, but they played with more risk. They committed more players forward. When you look at the chances, if United had a guy who can pass, you look at McTominay's square ball. It's an easy pass. Couldn't do it. 2 guys free at the back. When you look at in open play, United actually attacked with more verve and more intensity than Chelsea. Chelsea, what they did was second half, they actually slowed the tempo down, and that helped their game. That helped them to regain control of the game. Because first half they didn't have control, and definitely the last 15 minutes of that first half, United were dominating, knocking on the door.
But that Man United were trying to win the game, and they were the more attacking team.
No, I'm not saying more. I thought both teams were attacking, but in open play, United attacked with more numbers and more pace.
But that's how Man United played.
Chelsea were a lot more methodical in their attack. They didn't attack with risk. They attacked within their system.
Man United play like that. That's how they play. That's how they've played every single game this season. So that's not going to change. And I think that's where Ollie's issue is, in terms of sometimes you've got to have a pattern to your attack. Man United are just gung-ho. Today, however, Fred and McTominay actually played their role pretty decent.
Quite a lot of the big games, United have played very tactical, and it's been a boring game. This one, I was actually happy that United didn't overplay themselves. Safe. They didn't play safe. They actually really went for it. Other games, I've seen so many of the top games this season, United have played safe. They've played 4-0 and they've gotten 0-0, a lot of them. But today is just good. That's partly why I enjoyed the game, because it felt like United actually were going for it rather than sitting back. And tactically, it was quite good, because I saw something that I haven't seen in this United team, which was there was a bit more of a tactical plan to the pressing, and they done really well to take Kovacic out of the game. So what was happening was James kept coming in to mark Kovacic, and Fernandes was coming close and marking the space where Kovacic was. So what happened was they always set the trap for two players to press Kovacic, and they left Chilwell and everyone else So what was interesting was Wan-Bissaka was coming so far up the pitch to press Chilwell, and that's why towards the latter of the first half, they kept winning the ball in midfield, because we've touched on it previously. Chelsea struggled to play through the middle. They find it easy just to get the ball out wide. But because those options to the wing backs was cancelled out by the high press of Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, they had to play in the middle. And what we kept seeing was Fred and McTominay picking it up off Kante or off Ziyech. They kept crunching in, stepping in, and the counter-attack was on. So I was impressed to see there was actually a tactical plan off the ball, which normally we've been quite critical of with United. They seem to play just pressing, and you don't know how they're pressing or whether there's a structure to it. Today there was.
I mean, do you think kind of Kante nullified Fernandes in terms of his goal threat and everything? Do you think Kante was the reason, or is it just a poor performance from Fernandes?
This is a normal performance from Fernandes. He just didn't get a goal or an assist.
But that's what I'm saying. Is it because of Kante he didn't get?
Nah, I would say it is literally just Fernandes can't score an assist every game. This is just one of the games he didn't. Kante played well, but I don't think he did anything particular to limit Bruno Fernandes or stop him. Bruno Fernandes just didn't have his usual end product. And what's funny about Bruno Fernandes and his end product is you'll hear commentators always say, like, this is very unlike him. He'll play a crazy pass that will go nowhere, and you'll hear the commentator say, yeah, it's unlike him. It's not. This is how he is, 24/7. His whole time at Man United, he just didn't get his goal and assist. That's it. Kante didn't have to do anything.
I feel it's more Chelsea's system. I think it's more Chelsea's system that didn't allow the space for Fernandes to get on the ball as much. It's because they got the two sitting CDMs. They got also the three centre backs all stepping in, so it didn't allow him to have that space. Rather than but Kante obviously does make a difference. But I felt the system kind of marked Fernandes at the game, and like I said, Fernandes, I mean, United don't have the midfielders to get the ball into him in tight spaces anyway.
Yeah, that's why it's just strange when United fans act like Pogba isn't their best player. I find that really strange, because he is someone who can take control of the ball, calm it down, speed it up, and get the ball to Fernandes in positions where he can be a big threat. So without him,
Do you think this is what
Fernandez
was
is having to do too
Pogba to
much.
change the game?
Yeah, but I think in most of the games where United actually have to be creative, Pogba is someone that should be playing. It's just that obviously, unfortunately, he's injured. But previously, he wasn't playing in the big games, for example, because the manager's too worried about being strong defensively. He'd rather lose the creativity and hold out for defensive solidarity and hopefully catch them out on the break with players like Rashford and Greenwood and Martial. Speaking of Greenwood, Hassan, what do you think of him as a how do you think his trajectory would be? Because I feel like he should be playing for Man United if they're not playing Cavani, but he's not really been given the opportunity to have a long run. And so when he comes in, he's looking a bit out of sort.
Personally, from my point of view, I think he should play through the center instead of the right, because he's got a great finish on him. And any player will need time to kind of get into the rhythm of the games and everything. So him not getting that chance playing on the right kind of doesn't give him the opportunity to show what he could do.
Today he played in the center, though.
Sorry?
Yeah, he played through the middle today.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's one game. You need a couple of games. He hasn't been playing consistently.
So Hassan, are you telling me that Greenwood should be ahead of Cavani?
Yeah, but Cavani's not
available.
Cavani's not available.
Hey, he should be ahead of Martial.
Cavani's not available
at the moment. He is ahead of Martial. That's why he started today, and Martial was on the bench. But definitely not knowing when he's playing on the right, it's because Cavani's down the middle.
No, but
and if you look at the United profile of the squad, Greenwood is better than anyone else we have on the right hand side. Damn side better than James. So at the end of the day,
he's not better than Amad Traore.
Keep playing. He just needs to keep playing. I think
Amad Diallo, sorry.
Diallo, yeah.
He needs the games. What about you, Hifso? What's your take on Greenwood and his opportunities and positions?
I don't think he goes ahead of Cavani down the middle. Like I don't think at this moment in time there's no way. I would 100% agree that he is much better on the right than Daniel James. And I think it's one of those where a good run of games, but also with players like that, with his talent, his age, as being an emerging prospect, you need to be with a coach and a manager that can tell you the technical and tactical areas of where you need to improve your game. And I think that's what it's going to depend on in terms of when we talk about his trajectory. He's got a lot of really good ingredients, but it will come down to whether it's Solskjaer or other coaches in the team are directing or guiding him on.
Okay,
I think it more comes down to the Fernandez issue. Because what it is, Greenwood's style does not fit in with Fernandez's, because Fernandez, like we said, gets on the ball. He wants runners in behind. Greenwood can do that, but he prefers it to his feet, or played into his line onto the feet, not running in behind totally.
Okay,
so what happens is he wants it slightly in front of the defender, and he can isolate that one defender, go past him. The thing is, Fernandez wants you to make the run beyond the defender. So that then takes Greenwood into areas where he's just told the angle is just too tough for him to make a real good go of it. So I felt that anyway, that just that mix isn't quite the right mix.
Okay, based on what you said about Greenwood trying to receive at feet, if that's the case, why has Martial played most of Man United's games?
I think at the start of the season, it was fair that Martial was the main number 9. I mean, Cavani was injured, but we should also commend Oli that he's dropped him. I mean, his performances haven't been good enough, and he's been dropped. I mean, he plays only in the Europa League now and comes on as a sub. So Greenwood is the starting right winger, and when Cavani is injured, he's the starting striker, which I think is the way it should be based on performance.
How many goals has Cavani got so far this season in the league?
So about maybe 4 or 5, not many.
I don't think he's warranted that much.
He's been injured a lot, so injured and suspended. whatever it is.
But it's not really about just goals from it. It's what Cavani brings to the team.
Oh no, I like
leadership, the
Cavani.
pressing.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
The
That's all.
chances he creates. When you see him on the pitch, you could, a world-class player, you notice, and he maybe in another team he would score. He would have a lot more goals by now because you see so many runs that he makes, but United don't have the players to see it or don't have the creative players to see it. And really, if we can tighten up on the way we attack, we have a striker who can score a lot of goals.
Do you think
especially with his
lacking
movement?
the same thing then?
Sorry?
Do you think Chelsea is lacking the same thing where they need a world-class striker? Because
I think they're lacking a world-class striker, but I also think they're lacking a proper creative player that knows how to put it on a plate for a striker.
That's supposed to be
all of their attackers just whack the ball into space or in the box. They don't actually look to find a player.
So they got creative players like Famik mentioned, Ziyech. They got Pulisic, Mount.
Pulisic is not a creative player. Neither is Mount.
But
They're dribblers. Their profile is more like wingers. When you see them play, the thing you will say rate about Mount and Pulisic is when they go past the player, when they do skill and trickery, even Hudson-Odoi. But all of them have a problem with end product. I always feel like they always just smash the ball into the box.
So would you say Havertz is the solution then? looking at the Chelsea team.
No way. Havertz isn't creative either. He is a Dele Alli, basically. He is a German Dele Alli. He is a second striker who gets assists based on loose balls, gets goals and assists based on loose balls. He doesn't actually create things.
I think they do have, they got Ziyech and they do have Havertz first, who are probably more guys who are less about dribbling and more about playing the 1-2s. But again, like I said, when the fixtures are thick and fast, it's tough to really build and work on these type of things. So just currently, I would say, yeah, they do have a problem, but obviously they do have the players to also fix it. And with United, I think it's a bit more. It's hard to create chances when you play this brand of fast counter-attacking football, where you're essentially just attacking the channels.
But do you think with Chelsea, with the players they have, they can go to the next step where they're more creative and more?
That's a question I was literally also going to add, if I might, Hassan, in terms of what Adil was saying about at the moment fixtures coming thick and fast. A lot of it is just getting through the fixtures week by week. What were your guys' views on, from the game you saw today, in terms of long-term plans and team development, Solskjaer and United versus Tuchel and Chelsea, and whether or not, just to add on Hassan's point, whether you think that final third end product, creative quality element to Chelsea's team can be added? Because I can already see, even I watched the midweek game against Atletico, and up until that final third, I can see a lot of positive stuff Tuchel has already implemented. In terms of his style of play, he's obviously always been a principles first coach where, he can be flexible when it comes to system, but he's focused on making sure all of his players understand what they need to do when it's time to attack, what they need to do when it's time to defend. Slowly building that on a principle-based approach, but it might be that final third and quality is the kind of the final missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Whereas with Ollie's United team, I'm not sure how much of in comparison, even though the result was a 0-0, I'm not sure how much of a long-term plan or structure there is, and how kind of he would build, he would add to it, he would move from week to week.
Well, based on this, we've had a similar discussion about Ollie before.
Okay,
he's a good manager, but in terms of tactics and coaching, I'm not convinced. He seems to rely on the fact that he has good attacking players, so it works for him in the sense. going all out attacking when people are tired. It's fine. It works at the moment. That's why they're in the position they're in. Chelsea are going to do what Chelsea always do. They need a striker. They need a creative player. They'll buy both in summer. And Tuchel will make better use of his players than Oli currently.
But I think what is I think we have to analyze the differences here, because it's about philosophy. If you're going to talk about Tuchel's philosophy, his philosophy is to dominate the game, to control every facet, to play possession play. But Ollie's isn't that. I mean, Ollie's one is to play instinct football, to play off instinct, to play off. So he's not looking to set Man United up to have patterns of play the way Chelsea are. Now, I don't mind either approach. I actually like the fact that United are going down this road of not going down this road of pattern play. I like the fact that it's off instinct. But the problem with that system is it only works if you have intelligent players who understand the game. That's why Fernandes has been able to make such a big difference. Even though he's a high risk, high reward player, he still sees things that no other United player can anyway. So he's been able to transform Man United because of Ollie's philosophy, which is not to create an attacking template where there's loads of patterns of play.
But is that sustainable?
Movements. It's all play what you see, play forward, play aggressive.
What happens when Fernandes gets injured? Because obviously then there's a clear issue.
But the format is still there. It's just you're relying more on the counter attack because you haven't got that player who's going to take that risk and make something happen. That's the only difference. But his philosophy doesn't change. I mean, that's his philosophy. If you look at Chelsea today, let's be honest, I mean, they did not create anything today. No, their biggest threat was Chilwell.
Yeah.
They did. And one thing is, in my notes I wrote down, what's the point of having Hudson-Odoi on the pitch?
As a wing back?
Yeah, but what's the point of even having him on the pitch if you're going to focus all your attacks down the left anyway?
On the other side.
All they were doing was attacking down Chilwell's side. So I was like, you've got a guy. I would have loved to have seen one-on-one between Hudson-Odoi and
Luke Shaw.
But it never happened. Only once, and Odoi just crossed it in. It's a good cross. But my point being, for all the patterns of play and the build-up that Chelsea had, I never felt any of their players had a threat today, and that's more down to Manchester United's off the ball work. Today, Man United tactically off the ball were excellent.
I just think,
and that's
it's because Chelsea have come across a better team. Because I said this previously, the way they play isn't amazing. It's hard to watch, in my opinion. I don't enjoy it, and the better teams they come against, the worse they tend to look.
So, Fami, do you think they're going to get exposed now when they're playing the much better teams in the league? Do you think their system's going to get exposed?
When you say exposed, I don't know if they'll come under too much pressure defensively, because I think their defense is solid. It's just whether they will create the chances to actually win games. What you might see is against the bigger teams, they'll either get a 1-0 win or they'll have a lot of draws where it's 0-0.
Interestingly, the thing is, if you look into it quite closely, there's actually a very niche similarity between and also kind of Tuchel's style of play or philosophy and Ollie's philosophy, in that if you actually look at it, because Tuchel takes the approach of it being principles based, he's very keen on teaching his players how to solve their own problems on the pitch. So then there comes an element where, he, similar to United, Ollie and United, he's also actually relying on some of his players to make some of the decisions on the pitch, as opposed to being overly prescriptive in what they do. And then that comes down to the whole point that, okay, if some of his players aren't intelligent enough, or if he doesn't have the right mix or type of players, he might not get to that end point in terms of making sure he's scoring goals and winning games, which becomes even more evident when you play better and bigger teams.
Oh, the funny thing is a lot of managers do that. They coach their teams through the first two phases and let the players decide what they do in the third phase. And
Yeah.
that you can see Chelsea build up through the first and second phases fine. No problems there. It's as soon as when it's time to deliver the final ball and make the right decision, more often than not, they don't. Whereas Man United are the complete opposite. Because of the attacking threat they have, they more often than not get the right results in the attacking third. But building up to them is where the issue is, which is why they do counter-attack and miss out a lot of players. It's usually front to back, Bruno through to the middle. Like, it's very...
But
they know they have a certain style, but I just don't think long-term it will continue to work.
I think a lot depends. If United keep adding the quality, if they keep getting players like Sancho or players who can put it on a plate.
If United had Saka,
then yeah. But,
right decisions all the time.
But the thing is,
but they got Greenwood.
What surprised me about today's game? What surprised me about today's game was it was Tuchel who adjusted his system to respect Man United. And if anything, Oli played more aggressive than he has against any team. Because how many times did he leave just 2 and 2 at the back like he does most games? He hasn't been doing that against the big teams, but he did it today. They played a higher line than they normally do. They pressed higher up. They had both McTominay and Fred pressing higher up.
Fred had a good game today.
Both fullbacks pressing higher up. So but we never saw the Aspilicueta overlaps. We never saw Kovacic breaking in. Ziyech was dropping deep. Mount wasn't really much of a threat, even though he still was their best player because when he's on the ball, he shows his quality. He wasn't really a threat. So I just feel like for all of Chelsea's impressive build-up play, today, they were the team that were negative. In the second half, they were the team that dropped both wing-backs into a flat 5. Tuchel even said it in his interview. They went to 5-2-2-1. So
speaking of systems and players,
all the adjustments was done by Chelsea. Yeah, but I do think today Chelsea got found out slightly. I felt their pressing off the ball was poor, or the whole game. It was quite easy for Man United to play around them. And the funny thing was they weren't, and that lineup. I think he said it before about Arsenal family that depending on the personnel, it doesn't have it's not a pressing lineup. And today Chelsea's lineup was the lineup that just doesn't press. Ziyech does not press. Giroud doesn't press. Kovacic doesn't press. So all across the pitch, it was quite easy for United to pass around them, which normally wouldn't happen. And the only reason United looked more of a threat was because how spaced out Chelsea were.
I mean, it seems like United missed an opportunity here to kind of nick the 3 points.
But you know, they went for it.
I think they'll be happy with their point because it keeps them in second. Leicester lost. Man United are fine.
But I disagree with that. I don't think United had that approach. They actually played to win. I was surprised because I was expecting United to play defensive, tactical football because Leicester lost and they don't need to go win the game. But from the two teams, I actually feel United showed more courage and took more risks.
I agree. And I enjoyed Man United's style of play. And on that note, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. And see you next time.
Thank you, guys.